Hey everybody, welcome to another episode of the Odd Vlog, and just thought I'd give my kind of reaction now that the What If series has finished. My overall sort of takeaway from the entire series and what I thought about it. Overall, I really don't like it, but not. It's kind of a difficult one. I think I look at it as being kind of like a fun thing. It is a fun element of the MCU, and it's a fun show to watch. But not really something that you can kind of take seriously, and that's probably what it is obviously intended to do. It's just supposed to be a fun show that kind of demonstrates these alternate realities and these different stories that you can have now that the multiverse in the MCU is kind of opened up. But the reason why this doesn't really doesn't hit well with me at all is simply the fact that we've spoken about it before. I did reviews of sort of episodes 1, 2, 3, and 4, so I won't go into a lot of depth about those ones. But they're littered with mistakes. Episode 3 I really enjoyed, and the reason why I enjoyed it, I think, is because it was so sort of such an original story that separated it away from what happens in the secret timeline, like the normal events of what we see in the MCU, so that there weren't any mistakes that you could make in terms of simple script errors and things like that. The other thing that I really struggle with it about the whole show as well is the fact that each episode being 30 minutes means that to tell an entire strand of time that's separate from the main timeline and a whole unique brand new story, 30 minutes is not enough. And the difficulty then is that the pacing is so quick. I mean, it's really fast. It's painful. It makes it really difficult to have any kind of emotional investment in the character whatsoever, and you feel really distanced from them, which is unusual for a Marvel franchise, because everything we've seen in the MCU has always been built around your strong emotional connection to a character and why we love them and why we hate them, why we want to root for them and why we want them to succeed or fail or whatever. Whereas in What If, I couldn't care less if such a character dies, because I never get time to actually invest in them. And I think because we're used to seeing characters in live action, they don't feel the same, they don't look the same, they don't sound the same, even when they've got the same voice actors. In actual fact, the best voice actors in that show are the people we're not used to hearing. So obviously you've got like Chris Hemsworth in there, Chadwick Boseman, etc., that do obviously the live action characters. And it's quite clear that those actors are used to doing live action performances and not actually animated sort of voiceover work, because they're the worst voice actors in it. The better ones are the ones that are sort of there that we've never seen before. So it just doesn't help. It creates this separation away from sort of mainstream MCU to create this thing which is just too different, and the tone of it is just so wrong. I mean, like the zombie episode, for example, was really good. I actually really enjoyed that one, but it still left me wanting more because it doesn't end properly. None of the episodes end properly, and now that the series is finished, we know that's because it was kind of leading to a big event where those storylines were going to get intersected by something else that was happening, where those characters were going to get pulled out and taken off to go and then deal with this kind of main threat, this main problem to the multiverse. So that's fine, and it kind of did explain in the end why you would get an episode like the zombie one where the ending is just cut off. And the same thing happened with the Killmonger episode, and basically all of the episodes. They get to a point where they finish that episode and you're sort of still wanting more, and you don't really get the ending. That's because now we know that the characters are taken out of that situation, because the Watcher basically takes them away. It chooses those characters to go and deal with Ultron and the fact that he's destroying the multiverse. So it's difficult because it makes each episode not great, because you don't get the ending that you not that you feel that you need, but it's if you're going to tell a story should have an ending to it. I mean, that's the basics of a story, right? Beginning, middle, end, and they don't have an end. None of them do. So it just feels wrong. And then when you finally get to the finale, you get some explanation of it, but obviously leading up to that point, you're just frustrated as an audience, and it's really awkward and painful. So you rush your way through 30 minutes of an episode, painfully dismissing the fact that characters that were used to being sort of very emotional and having to deal with emotions and being able to relate to them. We can't now because we don't have time to invest. Then suddenly you don't end the story. Then all of a sudden you're trying to bring all of those characters into a team because of some great big evil that's happening in the world. And obviously in this case it was Ultron trying to take everything over. The other thing about the finale as well is, why did they cut an episode? They literally cut an episode. So there should have been some explanation as to Gamora and Tony. Obviously the Watcher turns up and takes Gamora away and says, "You're chosen," and then Tony's like, "Oh, I can help," and then the Watcher's like, "Well, not you." But that scene is obviously taken from the end of an episode where I think Tony was supposed to appear on Sakaar, so the way that Hulk did with Thor, but in that what if story it was going to be Tony that ended up there with Gamora, and they just cut it. They literally ripped it out. So we don't know why they're there. We don't know what they're doing. We don't know why Tony's suit is looking as it does. We don't know why Gamora has Thanos' armor. We don't know anything. All we know is that the Watcher suddenly turns up and chooses this random Gamora character to go and off and do a mission with no explanation. I don't know why they did it. There's a lot of theories going around that maybe it had something to do with a virus in the storyline, so they cut it because it was obviously like COVID sensitive and all that kind of thing, which I thought was really interesting because they didn't bother to cut the episode with Killmonger and the fact that they were dealing with events in Afghanistan, which was like all over the news at the time. So why pull one and not the other? And I think we're mature enough as an audience to be able to separate fact from fiction, and it's just very, very bizarre way of dealing with it, and it's probably, I assume, Disney stepping in and saying, "No, you can't do this." But it just makes the series even worse. So now you've got these episodes that are incredibly rushed with characters that don't have time to invest in, with stories that don't finish properly, episodes that are missing, and then a finale that obviously because of that, I couldn't care less what happens. In actual fact, I wanted kind of Ultron to win so that he would then have a reason to turn up in live action and maybe in the Multiverse of Madness. They would draw on that storyline as being, a protagonist of something that was going to happen. Whereas now, obviously, they can't do that. The Party Thor episode as well. Why is Thor becoming the most stupid character in Marvel? Like, as he goes on and on and on throughout the MCU, he gets dumber and dumber and dumber, to the point now where he was just pathetic in that episode. A funny story, I get that, and that's fine. But why are they dumbing him down so much? Why are they making it so bad? I just think, why are you taking one of, quote, Earth's mightiest heroes and turning him into a joke? Fat Thor in Endgame was like the worst thing in Endgame for me because it became a joke that got very old very fast, and by the time you get to the end you're fed up of seeing it because it was just ridiculous. You want to kind of demonstrate his depression and the fact that he's coping with events, but by the end of the film he's not kind of in that frame of mind anymore because he wants to battle Thanos and all the rest of it. It just became a joke that just went too far for me, and just went on and on and on way too long. And then you go into What If, and you see now this version of Thor, which is the complete dumbass. He's just utterly stupid, and there's no reason for it. It's just god awful. So a funny episode, but again, I can't take it seriously. I don't think the entire series is meant to be. But my hope for it was that it was going to lead into Multiverse of Madness, because then it becomes relevant. And at the moment, it has no relevance whatsoever. And in previous kind of reviews of What If that I've done, I've always entitled them "What If, What's the Point?" or "What If It's Still Pointless?" And it is completely pointless. You could watch the show, not watch the show, it makes absolutely no difference. And we're not used to that as an audience of these Marvel movies, because we're used to them being connected. It therefore makes every movie relevant. They all tie in with one another. Now you've got an entire series which is completely throwaway. And if it's not gonna connect and be relevant, then what is the point of doing it? So it's honestly, to me, the worst installment in the entire MCU, and I'm including like the early films of like Incredible Hulk. This is the worst thing in it, and I never want to watch it again. I think they're doing a second series, and I really wish they wouldn't waste their time. I'd rather they actually invested that time and effort and money into doing something else. Just do something else, because it was just horrendous. It's it does have elements of fun to it. I get that, but at least give it relevance. If nothing else, at least connect it up so that it's worth you investing your time in it as an MCU fan, so that when you go into the movies, you're grateful for the fact that you saw this show, because you're kind of now being rewarded that it's connecting up with other stories and other characters and other things that are happening in live action. As you do with all the other Disney Plus series that we've had so far. We know that they're all going to have an effect, an interconnected storyline, stuff that's relevant. And What If, unfortunately, is still pointless, completely and utterly pointless. A totally throwaway show. Yes, good fun, but I didn't find it fun. I found it frustrating and cringy and quite frankly painful to watch. So it's a very, 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 very epic fail for me, which for Marvel is quite a big deal. So there we go. Yeah, I really didn't like it. I know plenty of people do. I know plenty of people love it, and that's absolutely fine. If you enjoy it, you enjoy it. That's great, and I'm pleased that there are people out there that do. It's just not for me, not at all. I mean, I wanted to enjoy it, and that's the thing as well. A lot of like reviewers and particularly YouTubers, I think they deliberately like pull stuff apart and hate things, or claim that they hate things purely so that they get more interaction, but that's not the case here. I actually really wanted to enjoy this. I wanted it to be so good, because I wanted it to tell this multiverse, story, this whole great big thing where you can have all these alternate realities and variants of characters doing all these different things, but it fell so far off the mark. It was awful. And what it comes down to, unfortunately, is just bad writing. It's very, very badly written. I mean, the continuity errors that we had throughout the series, they're there if you look. And not just that, but the complete dismissal of character emotions in a lot of the episodes. I mean, say again for that zombie episode as an example, the fact that Winter Soldier is so dismissive when he kills Zombie Cap is just wrong. It's so wrong. You would never ever get Bucky and Steve having to fight or kill one another, zombie or not, and not be emotionally invested. Bucky literally made some off-the-cuff comment, having just killed his best friend, or zombie version of his best friend. He shows no remorse, no regret, no upset, makes a comment and walks away. And that's not right. That's not Marvel. That is not Marvel storytelling. It's lazy writing, which I have seen other people accuse them of that as well. And I completely agree. It is very lazily written. The first few episodes, the continuity mistakes in that are horrendous, and they are there. There is some terrible script in this, of moments of dialogue between characters that have already happened, so they're repeating things. They're throwing in certain events and storylines, or even plot devices, and even objects that don't belong there, and it's just really bizarre. And if you want to know what I'm talking about, have a look at the other reviews that I've done for some of the previous episodes specifically, where I'll go into that detail. But there are mistakes. It's littered with mistakes. So yeah, from that perspective, it's just I'm just going to pretend like it's not a thing and it doesn't exist. I mean, who knows? They'll do a season 2. I think they're already discussing it, so hopefully they'll do it better. Maybe they'll learn from this. But my fear is that they're just going to kind of run away with what they've done in this series, and just make it more stupid and even less relevant, and character assassinate basically everybody. So I really hope that they do it better. But it is, I think, just that emotional thing where, you watch the live action shows and films, and you do get to really heavily invest in the characters. I mean, I know it can be done in a series because we've had other series and we've never had this issue before, but it's the fact that they tell an entire story, really a film's worth of story in 30 minutes. It just doesn't work. Some of the humour is quite good, but overall it's quite an epic fail for me. So there we go. That's just my initial reactions. Yeah, definitely one to forget, unfortunately. So with that said, we can move onwards. Look at what's coming next. We've got the Hawkeye series coming, so that will be really good. The trailer's already come out. It looks really cool. I love it. Again, it's Hawkeye. It's one of the original 6. It's going to obviously be connecting up to what happened after Endgame. There may even be some Natasha references. Yelena's supposed to be in it, so that's really cool. So we're really looking forward to that one. Eternals is coming out. Eternals, unfortunately for me, is another kind of Shang-Chi in that I couldn't care less about it, so I'm just going to forget about Eternals. I'm not going to bother to watch that until it's free. I'm not paying the money to see it. But the big one is obviously going to be Spider-Man in December, so we're really looking forward to that. Venom, by the way, I've seen the post-credit scenes to Venom, so all I can say about that is, without spoiling it, it's probably worth a watch. So yeah, then we've got Spider-Man coming out in December, and then when we get into next year, it's all going to be about Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness, where hopefully a lot of this stuff is going to be just taking off to a whole new level. So really excited for the stuff that's coming. And with that said, we'll look forward to that. We're all done, and I'll see you guys in the next episode.